All right. Hopefully people will find the chat. All right. So someone's here. I'm assuming you can hear me now. Can you hear me? Okay. Cool. So I originally planned to try to do the audio through my mixing board and connecting it through my little Focusrite using this thing into the computer, but I don't know. I guess I got to work on that. I had it set up all nice with the compressor and everything, but we're going to have to deal with the laptop audio. Okay. So this is supposed to be some questions, and I breezed through them earlier today, but I didn't really take a long look at it. So we got Alex here. I see Eric here. Lipstick Attack, Capo Leaf. What a great showing. Okay, so let me get these questions here. And if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any questions at any time, you can just ask me, I guess, as well. Oh, this is so awkward with no one else to fill in the gaps of space between. Jeez, we got to get this. Okay, I'm trying to find the post. I don't know how to use the YouTube app, apparently. Okay, here we go. What happened to the neighbor's cat? We don't speak of that. All right, so I'm going to go in order here. Oh, this is a lot of questions. Oh, damn. maybe I should have read through these and parsed some out. All right, I'll start with a simpler one here. How do you record different percussive elements as well as keys and piano? It's a good question. And I think kind of to a similar approach in a lot of the ways, especially because piano is a percussive instrument after all. I tend to like if I'm going for just like a dynamic microphone, I usually reach for my EV635A to put on either if I'm doing tambourine, a shaker, or the piano. The other half of the time, I will use my ribbon microphone. And there, the ribbon microphone is really going to react well to like the quick transients of the percussive elements. And I think it really brings out a lot of clarity when you use the ribbon microphone. And you could really play around with your room sound as well. And that sounds really good if you're using tambourine or shaker and you want a little bit of room sound. You could back up that ribbon microphone, get a little more of the back end. So that's usually what I do. The piano, like normally I wouldn't suggest something or think to use something like a dynamic microphone on my piano, but I happen to do that because I only have two stereo pairs of microphones. I have two SM57s and I have two EV635As. So most of the time, if I need to do a stereo imagery of some sort that I want the microphones to be the same, I just use my EV635As. And on the piano, I put one kind of on the bass strings and the other one kind of on the high strings, and I try to even it out, and then I'll record, and then upon playback, I'll see if I want to favor one mic over the other. I could EQ them differently. But anyway, that's the only reason I use those EV635As on piano. It can be a little mushy being a dynamic microphone, but it gets the job done. Capo Leaf just asked, do you ever use reverb on any of your drum tracks? No. I always try it, but there's just usually so much room noise in my drum tracks as is that it's just, by the time I try adding in a little reverb, it's just such a mess that it's not even worth it. I have tried just like the snare mic as well, same thing. It's just so blown out and there's just so much room noise in this corner of the room, the drums, that I don't think ever put artificial spring reverb on drums. But in the future, if I get a better acoustically treated setup, that is definitely something that I will explore. All right. I need a drink of water. All right. This is from, okay, I can't even pronounce that. Zekaware Blood. Zekaware Blood? Would you ever consider doing a video of you making a song from start to finish, showing us how it's recorded and then mixing and mastering a track in full as well? I feel like I kind of have already done that. It's just kind of been split up into different videos. But yeah, I guess I could do something like that. Next time me and my boy Alex are recording something, I could record, something like all in one go as a, I'm just thinking of it. I have that one video, the 1 hour challenge. That's kind of that idea where I'm writing a song, recording it, finishing it, mixing it down, mastering, and all in trying to do about an hour. So if you haven't seen that video, watch that. That is a fun one. Alex G, what made you want to make garage rock? So that's an interesting question. Kind of a twofold answer, I guess. One being it's just one of my favorite genres, probably my most listened to genre of any genre I have in my repertoire. And I really like to jump around from genres to genres, but garage rock in some sense and through different eras, I always found a connection to. But two, the second part of that, it wasn't necessarily what I want to make. It's kind of just what I had to make. I feel like everyone in their initial stages of becoming a musician and writer is kind of writing in a very garage rock type of way, right? Like I was learning guitar. Like I've only been playing guitar for a very short period of time. Same for bass, same for keyboards, right? So like all of my riffs are super simple on guitar. Let me get a guitar in my hand. I'm still connected here. But like when you're first learning guitar, everyone just starts doing like power chords and stuff like that. And your song structures are really simple. Maybe you just do a 1-4-5. But anyway, like you're gonna that not only from a songwriting perspective be really novice, but also from a recording perspective, I was also really novice working in unideal conditions in this little room and various other rooms I've recorded in, in my house. The conditions are never ideal. It's never going to sound like a studio recording, right? There's always going to be that garage element, regardless of the genre you're doing. I guess garage is kind of just like a smeared term there. Okay, hopefully I answered that. Alex, are you going like that? Wow. Okay. What's your favorite type of electric guitar? Probably my Tele. This was probably the only thing in this entire room that I bought new. And this was my first guitar. And I love this thing. Just a classic Squier Tele. And this one's got the, I forget what they're called. The through holes? Whatever they're called. Those keep the tuning for a very long time. Like there's sometimes I like almost never tune as often as I should. Okay. Let's go to the next question. What is the most silly goose friendly way to start home recording for cheap without taking up a lot of space? That is an easy answer. Like the Beatles all die, but you have the power to bring one of them back. Who do you revive? Okay. We need to put a bookmark in that question. But like, in all seriousness, though, like the most silly goose way to start home recording is like literally the cheapest thing you could find. That is just, like a cell phone can work. I have heard so many recordings that were recorded on cell phones that sounded better than I would ever have thought if it was on a phone. But regardless, I recommend something like a cassette player like this. I literally bought this at Goodwill for $1 back in college. Like, literally as cheap as you could possibly go, right? And something like that is going to force you to commit to some takes, rather than like if you're working on a cell phone or any computer in any sense to record the song, you're going to be doing a lot of tweaking. And I feel like in your first home recording tests, you shouldn't, the less time you spend tweaking in the DAW world per se is probably going to do you better. That makes sense, right? So like something like this and like very Daniel Johnston-esque, you know, like I think his recordings are so special because it was truly coming from his heart and his performance into a little cassette machine like that, right? So I think that's the most silly goose way. There are 17 people here. That's kind of insane. All right. Let's keep going. That was Evander Torres. I might need to get more water. Recording drums on an iPhone voice memo works out better than it should. I would agree, and I think it's just because the sound of like your internal microphone and cell phone just getting blown out by drums sounds pretty damn good. Not good, but fun. I should say that. How were you able to afford all this fancy gear and analog equipment? You know, I get a few comments like that here and then, even some calling me a rich boy playing with his toys. Not bitter, but no, in all seriousness, like I think a lot of people just like see a wall of stuff and just think like this setup cost a shit ton of money to put together, and it is not at all. I say this all the time. You can't be buying stuff on eBay, okay? The eBay prices are out of control. You really need to go to places in person. Now, I've been told this is kind of like an American-centric point of view because, you know, there's a lot of garage sales and stuff like that here, whereas I guess in international countries, they don't have that type of thing. But most of the gear I've gotten here, I have bought in person or from people I know for really cheap. Like, there's only a few things here, like this Space Echo, I paid more than I should have for it. Still not eBay prices, but still, it was more than a couple $100. Like my tape machine is the most expensive piece of gear I own by far. And even then, like I didn't pay that much money for it like you see online. And like, you know, I have a full-time job. I do not spend my money flippantly on other stuff. This is one of my hobbies, so I save up money. And you know, I bought stuff slowly over the course of a few years. Now, the past few months or so, I have now had to pay for a mortgage for this house. So like my spending money has like taken a total nosedive. But that's okay. Like you shouldn't get into the habit of just buying gear just to buy it. You should really only buy out of necessity, right? So it's just one of those things that you kind of just have to save up for stuff that is worth it. Like, for example, I really want to get a couple DIY kits. I want to get a U47 kit. I want to get a Hairball 1176 kit. Those are like, I think they're both around like $600 to $800 each. But, you know, it's like something you just got to save up for. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have that the rest of my life if I take care of it. And it's just an investment. You got to see some of this stuff as an investment. But like I said, you shouldn't be like paying that much money. You know, something I always mention in my videos, I know I like repeat myself, but like the MN50, you know, like the eBay prices on some of these, they're all listed at like $200 for no reason. And it's just so funny because the other day I follow every single one of the times one of these gets listed on eBay, I get a notification. So I'm always following the money, like how much they're being listed for. And one just sold for $27. And I was bidding on it, and I was literally in the car with someone, and I had no signal, and I didn't bid at the last second, and I missed it. Well, I was going to try to give it away in one of my videos, but someone else got it. Hopefully, someone who watches this channel bought it. That would be nice. All right, let's go to the next question. I have to try to answer some of the chat, but I feel bad for the people that left me comments beforehand. All right, so I'm going to read one of Christopher J. Smoke and Mirrors questions. He Put a couple here. How did you find your 16-track deck and console? So I actually bought these together from the same guy. Actually, the same guy I bought the Space Echo from. I met that guy off Craigslist. He owned a music store in Glassboro, New Jersey, near Rowan, when I was going to Rowan University at the time. And I originally went there for the Space Echo. He listed it on Craigslist, and I was shooting the shit with him. We were talking about stuff, and like we were just talking about recording equipment. And he was like, "Hey man, you want to see something I got in the back?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he brings me back, and he's got this whole gigantic room filled of his personal audio equipment. And some of it's just like totally junk. Some of it's really, really nice. And like he had 3 of these 16-track machines. One was a part machine, and then 2 were working. And he's like, I bought these brand new. He's like, I had them forever. And he listed a price, which was, he was certainly not giving them away to me for free, but I had to save up for it. It literally took me a whole year. This is actually right when COVID hit. And no one was doing anything. I was lucky enough to be employed at my job. I didn't get laid off or anything, right? So I'm saving a lot of money, and it took me a whole year of COVID to finally say, okay, I got the money, and I bought the mixing board and the tape machine at the same time. Really nice guy. Still in contact with him. All right, let me see some of the questions that you guys said. You got to know how to wheel and deal, for sure. You definitely do know how to wheel and deal. And a lot of times, if you just show a genuine interest in something, and you're nice to people, they'll be willing to give you a good deal. I have so many stories of some of this equipment I've bought for so cheap just because someone was like, "Oh, you're interested," and you show a genuine interest. You know. Probably let me get one of my favorite actually. So I went to a flea market one time. And I bought, it was this one of these M67s. And this EV-RE15 in perfect condition, stamped CBS, station New York. And there was a bunch of other stuff. There was like a bunch of microphone cables. There were a couple other microphones, nothing that noteworthy. But anyway, like I think I offered the guy like $50, and he was like, okay. He's like, you seem like you're going to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the prices for these on eBay, and people are asking like $600. Like, they're not worth that much money. Just the demand on online markets are out of control. Yo, Paul, you have to email me because I can't log into my WhatsApp, and I can't find our conversation. I forgot where we left off. So you got to email me. All right, let me see another one of these questions. How much of your process is actually fun in the moment, and how much is more like frustrating work? That's a really good question. When I was making the album, it was a lot of a learning experience for me. And so it was very frustrating at points. There was a couple songs where there were some parts where I was practicing it for months trying to get good enough to be able to take a final record a final take. And that is so frustrating. And it was like that for pretty much every song. Like I was learning all these instruments while I'm writing and recording them, so it took a lot of practice. I'm still in that boat. I've been practicing a lot on piano recently, and it takes so much practice. I have this one song that I've been working on for months, and I've just been practicing the same piano parts over and over and over and over and over. So it gets so frustrating, but it's so it's kind of like a meditation, so to speak. I've also been working on this one finger picking rhythm. It was my first finger picking rhythm I've ever learned. And I've literally probably been practicing it for more than a year. And I'm finally just getting to the point now where I'm able to sing along with it with ease and do my little licks. And I'm at the point where I'm ready to record the song. So, that's the frustrating part. It's just learning the instruments, practicing. It is a little nerve-wracking when you're tracking sometimes as well. Or it could be frustrating at points for sure. Are you interested in $1176 compressors? Would you use one? Yeah, I actually, as I just mentioned before, I'm going to eventually buy the Hairball DIY kit for one. And I'm really curious because like all my compressors as of now are just VCA compressors, and like they all sound pretty much the same. I've never used another type of compressor before, and I'm really curious to see how different it's going to be for me during the mixing process. I'm gonna need to get some water. Give me 1 second. Okay. What is the best snare hit sound you've ever heard on a record? That is a good question. Let me think about that. You know, I am a sucker for like the really slappy garage sonics type of sound. I don't have a good answer right now. I don't like I really do not like snare sounds that are really polished, which is like one of the reasons like it's hard for me to get into some 80s rock music because like the snare sounds are just so I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like the gated reverb sound at all either. Really like the for the lack of a better term, the shit Metallica Saint Anger snare. Yeah. That's the actual answer. Overproduction kills drums. Got to have some room in there. I think it depends. For overall for like a regular sound, I agree. And then like I'm sure there's some of you that are like King Gizzard fans out there. Like some of like the drum sounds they get on like one of the records, like 12 Bar Bruise, where it's just like so crushed to bits and so unnatural sounding, but it sounds so good. All right, let's go on to the next one. Who's the ultimate New Jersey musician? I don't know. Of course, I'm blanking on all the New Jersey musicians at the moment. You have like the obvious ones like Bruce Springsteen, but I am not a Bruce Springsteen fan. Bruce Springsteen fan by any stretch of the imagination. It just doesn't connect to me. Frankie Valli, yeah, okay. See that I could get behind. Frank Sinatra, right, from New Jersey. I think at one point Nina Simone lived in New Jersey, but I don't know. You guys have to like list some names, and I could tell you. All right, on to the next questions here. All right, what is your background musically? I don't know how to answer that. Background musically, I played trombone in middle school band. I've always wanted to play the drums. When I was growing up, I always wanted to play, and I never had a drum set. And I remember I remember we used to get like magazines and Christmas for like all the kids' toys. I remember seeing the starter kit for like a little kid, and it's like a bass drum, a snare, and then I think one other drum, and it was $100. I remember it was exactly $100, and I remember asking my mom like, I want this for my birthday or something. I don't know what it was. And she was like, you have to save up for it. You have to save up for it. And I remember saving up for this goddamn drum set. And like, it took me, a little bit of time doing chores and stuff. And I finally buy the drum set. I'm trying to think how old I was. I don't know, 10 years old. But it was such like a crappy drum set that it was hard to get into. And I didn't have anyone to hold my hand literally and be like, oh, this is how you play the drums. Like I had no idea what I was doing. It was only until like I would say middle school age, where I realized I needed to get a hi-hat. And I got a hi-hat. And once I had a hi-hat, a snare, and a bass drum, and I was able to learn like the basic rock beat, that's how I became a drummer. I went to lessons for maybe like 3 years at this one place, Absolute Music in Keyport, New Jersey. That was a really fun place. They used to have probably the thing I learned the best there was they had jam nights on Fridays, and you used to be able to go there and you would jam with the other kids, and the guy who owned the place, John Albino, really nice guy. He was great with us. Like he would teach us how to literally jam, and like, you had some really young kids in there. You had people maybe like oldest 16 in there, jamming with each other. And like I was the only drummer for a long time, so I was playing drums the whole time during the jam, and that was really a great way to learn how to play with people at a young age for me. The rest, I mean, I've started playing guitar, bass, and keys all about the same time when I decided I wanted to try to make an album. And that was like, I don't know what year that was. 2019, I think. Yeah, I think 2019. So it's been like 5 years that I've been playing everything besides the drums. So I guess that's my background. All right. Kind of answered that question. How long have you been working on songs? There's some songs that I have been working on for years. There's some songs that I don't think I'll ever finish. They're more just like practice exercises I go through when I pick up a guitar or something like that. And then maybe one day we'll eventually get to recording them. The song I'm working on right now is like an 8-minute song, and it's all piano. And as I mentioned earlier in this, I've been practicing a lot. Anytime I sit down on the piano, I practice that song. So, I've been working on that for probably around like 6 months at this point. And I'm still not close to where I want to be. I really need the final take for this performance, this 8-minute saga, to like be perfect. And I want it to be exactly how I want it. So some songs take a really long time for me. The other songs, when I work with, like when me and Alex are doing some recordings, a lot of those songs were just done in one night. Like he'll come with me an idea and be like, here's the riff. We practice it a couple times. We'll do a take, and then we do vocals all in one night, and we'll do it like that. So it's like there's two completely different spectrums. Do you have a dream project you would like to put together / work on? Somewhere far down in my bucket list of goals as an artist, I would like to make a film of some sort that incorporates more than just music and a visual element. Me and my boy Tim, when we did My Neighbor's Cat music video, that was kind of my first introduction into that world, and it's just so much fun. It's so much fun to make something visual like that. Like it's such a joy, and I would like to do some sort of serious project involving that matter. All right, what's the next question here? If you could work with any musician at any time period, who would it be and why? I would just disappoint all of them. We can't even think about that. All my heroes, it's also like, don't meet your heroes. Like imagine getting in the room with like someone like Pete Townsend. He'd be such a dick. You know what I mean? All right. Would you consider your personal tropes? What do you consider your personal tropes in songwriting and composition? I feel like I'm constantly over-analyzing my chord progressions and thinking like, oh, I've done this before. And sometimes the song sounds completely different than another song I wrote. But I get in my head and I wind up rewriting it, and then I stop liking it. What's next for you? You're looking at it, baby. Did you ever have stage fright / performance anxiety? And if so, how'd you get past it? Oh my God, yes. Every time I've ever been on the stage for any reason, I have performance anxiety. A beer before you go on definitely helps you in that aspect. I would not overdo it. I have done that before, which is a disaster. But for real though, like one beer will help you get through a lot of frights, and you really just have to commit. And you need to obviously have the practice in. If you're, I mean, I say this so hypocritically because I get in this situation a lot where there's so many performances where I'm like, I'm not going to be able to play this song perfectly. I've never played it perfectly once before. And I'm going into shows thinking that. And it's like, it's impossible not to get in your head because like, there's no way you're going to nail it all of a sudden for your first time during a show and not during your practice time, So it's like, it's so hard not to get in your head. Where do you see yourself musically in 10 years? I can't think that far ahead. I don't know. Hopefully I would hope more comfortable on my instruments. Like I don't think about it in the sense of like a career path or anything like that. I think about it just like I want to be able to pick up a guitar and play something fun and hope maybe play it in front of people, whether that be like friends or family, just to make people have some entertainment. Piano as well, right? So like right now I'm not at that point where I'm able to do that, but hopefully one day I'd like to be able to do that. How did you end up working with other musicians? Did your friends just happen to be musicians? No, so it was really hard growing up to find people to play music with. The couple times I did play with people my age, some of them are just like not the nicest people, and like the first couple times you jam with people or you get into a band, there's a pretty steep learning curve there. And like, so like, anyway, that the people like I was learning with were just not good people. So like, I didn't play with a lot of people growing up. I eventually joined a band for the first time in college. That's where I met Alex G. He was the bassist in that band for the Growling Hounds. The kid Tim, I play some music with and made that music video with. He was a friend of a friend that heard a CD I had given that friend in the car, and he was like, really like the music, so he contacted me that way. Yeah, other than that, like, I unfortunately don't have that much experience playing with other people besides like a couple one-offs every now and then. Like my dad's friend I used to jam with very infrequently. Like people like that, like I've jammed with people occasionally, but nothing reliably. But anyway, like Alex is probably someone I record with the most. And I just know from him through that band that I joined through Craigslist. So I guess I met Alex on Craigslist. Do you have a favorite song that you've written? I think Little Yellow Bird is my favorite. I think that's like the best culmination of all of my strengths in the song. I think it's the best produced song I've made. So I think that's my favorite. It's a fun listen to me, like the voices and everything. How many song ideas don't you make? Oh, a billion. A billion, especially lately. I can't stick with anything. Do you have a backlog of interesting riff? Oh, I have so many of these tapes filled with rough ideas. So yeah, to answer that question, I have a billion riffs backlog. Do you sit down ready to record, or is it something spontaneous? Most of the time, it's pretty well thought out for my own material. When it's with other people, it's always pretty much a spur of the moment thing. Yeah, I answered those questions. I think I answered all of the pre-ones. Let's see. Let me just go through really quick. I can't believe there's 25 people still watching. Is that number of live people or the number of people who have been here in general? Claude, good to see you. Claude, I don't know if you remember, but like, I'm trying to think when this was. A year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we briefly talked about fingerpicking. And I said it was something that we both needed to work on. I remember us talking about it. I actually mentioned it before a couple minutes ago. I've been practicing that same riff since we said that, and I'm just now getting comfortable with it. So if that's the motivation for you to try to learn some fingerpicking. Yeah. Okay. See if there's any questions on here, because I read all those. Are there any producers you would recommend listening to? Off the top of my head, I would recommend Joe Meek. I think such a pioneer in a lot of the senses. And I think Joe Meek is such an interesting listen. Both his pop stuff and his, like, the classic I Hear a New World. Like totally two opposites of the spectrum, yet they both of like his pop songs and his experimental stuff still have that like Joe Meek production style and experimentation at it. It's just like really fun and really makes you think as a producer and a recording engineer how he got some of those sounds, and like it's fun to try to replicate some things like that. Other than that, I can't think of any like. I'm trying to think of some like obscure producer, but I can't really. Joe Meek. His equipment getting re-released. they're publishing his tapes full on with all the artists he worked with. That's really cool. Yeah, Joe Meek is so interesting. Sad story. Tristan said, "How am I? I'm good. Scenes from Italian restaurant. What's the best place for mic kits? I don't know. I've never bought a mic kit. I've always just bought individual mics or a lot of mics. I think I kind of answered. Do you ever use guitar pedals? Mostly no. My treble booster is probably my most used pedal, and I use that for like solos and like lead parts. But other than that, like I have a delay pedal, but I don't think I've really ever used it much. I've used it a couple times on recordings. I have on Frankenstein. I used ample use of my phaser pedal for the kind of that weird sound effect. I use fuzz every now and then, either my Big Muff or I have a Fuzz War. All right, I think I answered everything. Unless someone else has got some questions. Favorite non-US singer band? I mean, that's a pretty long list. I don't know. It's hard for me to pick favorite bands. I'm trying to think like who random I've been listening to recently. I always forget when people ask me. I saw you've used a Tascam M35. What did happen to it? M35. The M3500? It's still there. That's what you're talking about. What do you typically struggle with most in a mix? Everything just turning to mush. I have a habit of just putting too much in a mix and making it too busy. And whenever I am recording my own material, I have all these ideas and different instruments and different sound effects I want to add, and I always wind up overdoing it. And it's just so hard to mix. Whereas when I'm working on music with someone else or a song they wrote, it's much easier for me to be objective and remove elements from the mix and not overcrowd it so much. You managed to get a 4-track cassette recorder yet? No. You know how many times I'm about to buy one and I'm like, I don't need this. I need to save my money. I don't need a 4-track cassette player, but I really should. It would be a lot of fun. And they're not. Once again, I've seen a lot of good deals for not that much. Okay. Do you or would you ever record other artists at your studio? So I just recorded a full band for the first time maybe like 2 weeks ago. I was going to do a full video on it, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And that was my first time recording people that like weren't like one of my friends. I learned a lot. Whether or not I would continue doing it, it kind of sucks having a crap ton of people in your house like this. It's like it's not ideal. It's not ideal for a lot of reasons. I have a lot of limitations in this setup, so it's like kind of annoying having to record other people because it's like I'm working like a jabroni over here. If I had a proper setup, I really would just need a bigger room. If I had a bigger room or like a garage to put a setup, it would be so much better, and I'd be much more willing to record people. It's just like, I have so many people email me online asking to record or collaborate in some way, but it's like I don't necessarily want random people in my house that I don't really know, especially random people off the internet. No offense to any of you, but I'm a weird person. I imagine you're probably even weirder. All right? 4-track is amazing. I'm still looking into it. They aren't, yeah, I know. They aren't that hard to come by. All right. I think I'm going to end this. I'm tired. This went longer than expected. I can't believe there's 27 people watching. I got to do better next time. I got to have a little more of a structure. I'll do a little better. Do you ever use plugins? If so, at any? I don't use any plugins. I don't. Besides using Audacity to rip my music to a computer, that's the only time I ever use my computer to record. Do you have any plans for more interviews? Yeah, it's hard to get the notoriety, is that the right word? I think so. Notoriety to be able to allow bands to want to let you interview them. And yeah, like me and Alex have been talking about that, but like obviously it's not easy. Like we would obviously love to interview a lot of people, but you know it's hard to get your foot in the door. All right, I guess the question I have for you guys is like I've been thinking about there's a lot of things I'm interested hobby wise in that don't strictly do with music, like particularly like film photography or I have various other hobbies. Like, would people be interested in seeing that or just no? Like, keep it to the music. Just go easy on the reverb. But what are you? That's just ridiculous. Yes, film, absolutely. Photography would be fun. I got all the film stuff. All right. Yeah, because I have some ideas, and like some of them like kind of coincide with my musical interests as well. Like the album cover for my single "The Count." Like that was I recorded video on how I took that picture, and I never wound up doing anything with it. But it kind of coincides with the music. I think it's kind of interesting. So, photography with Mario. I got all the film stuff. I need guidance. I could definitely give you guidance. I've been shooting film more than I've ever shot digital in my life. Let me think. I've been shooting film. It had to be high school. So I guess at least 10 years. I don't know. More than a decade. So I have experience developing film. I have very minor experience in making prints, but I have experience in developing film so that I could do videos like that too. You want to stop paying for developing? If you're not developing yourself at this point, what are you doing? What are you doing? You have to that's so much of the fun. Yeah. You definitely have to develop yourself. That's like that's half the fun I think with film photography is going through the development process. And once you do it a couple times and you're more comfortable, it's not as daunting as it may seem. All right, I'm out. Peace, guys. Everyone have a good night. Hopefully this video gets saved. I don't know. Peace.